Well, if the Reserve Bank's decision to leave rates on hold today has left you feeling down and worried, you're certainly not alone. The Committee for Economic Development of Australia, or CEDA, says Aussies are living through the longest period of economic misery since 2011. Economist Liam Dillon is the author of what CEDA calls its Misery Index.
So the misery index is a tool for understanding how much, misery or pressure most Australians are feeling at the moment. And it comprises of three key elements that most Australians will understand and resonate with. And that's the interest rates, which are set by the Reserve Bank of Australia, the rate of unemployment, and the rate of inflation. And so while this time unemployment has been a real source of strength for the economy, historically that hasn't always been the case, and higher unemployment has led to higher levels of misery in previous downturns. But now what we see is that it's really that combination of higher inflation, which has been stubborn and persistent, combined with those higher interest rates that the RBA are using to really try and tackle and bring those inflation rates down to a sustainable level.
Do you think the stage three tax cuts and the electricity bill rebates that we're getting are going to keep inflation up?
So, what the Reserve Bank and we expect is that those cost of living supports, particularly those electricity rebates, will help bring headline inflation down. But those supports are temporary. And so the Reserve Bank is really focused on underlying inflation, which it thinks is a better measure of the momentum of inflation getting towards its target range. But certainly, those cost of living supports are one of the factors that's contributing to uncertainty around the economic outlook. What we know so far is that fortunately, those are appearing as though they're going more towards savings than spendings, which was helping in terms of not adding to inflationary pressures.
What's your reaction to the Reserve Bank's decision to keep rates on hold today?
Look, I think it's unsurprising, and the Reserve Bank needs to be commended in its laser focus on bringing inflation back down to target. As we show with this misery index, it's really that inflation piece which is bringing a lot of hardship to many members of our community right now. And that's why Michelle Bullock and the Reserve Bank are so intent on bringing it back to heel and to a sustainable level. And so their decision to keep it at what it called a restrictive level, I think is unsurprising. And it's good to see that they have that focus on bringing inflation back to target.
There's been a lot of discussion, though, in recent months, given the pain people are feeling with these very high interest rates and the higher mortgage repayments, that perhaps keeping interest rates high isn't the best weapon. Do you think high interest rates are the only way to bring inflation down?
Look, I think that what this shows is that having a job at the Reserve Bank and Michelle Bullock's job is very difficult, because what we see from the misery index is the trade-off that the Reserve Bank has to make. So high inflation causes hardship for people in the community, but equally those higher interest rates add to pain as well. And the combination of those, as we say in our research, is miserable. But unfortunately, the Reserve Bank only has its one lever to pull on. It's pulling on it, and it needs to continue to do so to make sure that inflation gets back to target, because it really is something that hurts everyone in our community, and it's in everyone's interest to get that back to target as soon as possible.
On that very point, let's try and move away from misery. Can you give us some good news if possible? Do you think we'll see interest rates coming down soon?
Look, I think that what we can expect is that early next year at the earliest is when interest rates might have a possibility of coming down a little bit. I'd certainly welcome if it was earlier, but I think that that's probably the earliest stage. But one thing to point out is that the Australian economy, in particular our labour market, has been very robust despite the economic headwinds that we've had. And so, while we compare ourselves to our international peers, we've done a really good job in holding off a sharp increase in unemployment. So in Australia, the rate of unemployment has increased by only 0.6 percentage points, but compared to the US, that's increased by zero point 0.8 percentage points, and it's gone up by 1.6 percentage points in Canada. On top of that, we have a really strong participation rate. So more people are in a job. That helps them to weather these hard economic times. And I think that's something we can all be happy about.
Liam Dillon is an economist at CEDA, the Committee for Economic Development of Australia.